The quiet old man and the storm he carried inside. It was just past 6 in the morning when the old man arrived, as he did every day. The sun had barely begun to rise, and a thin mist lingered in the parking lot of the supermart, wrapping around the cold metal carts like a secret. Most people didn't notice him. He moved slowly with a worn-out sweater too thin for the morning chill, and shoes that had long stopped pretending to be waterproof. In one hand, he gripped the cart handle. With the other, he leaned on a cracked cane made of something that once looked like wood. His body was bent like a tree that had weathered too many storms, but his eyes, they held something unshakable, something people couldn't quite name, so they looked away. Nobody knew his name. Not the customers who passed him, not the manager inside the store, not even the young workers who sometimes helped him gather the scattered carts left far from the return lanes. To them, he was just the cart man. Some thought he was mute. Others believed he had no home. But nobody asked. Nobody stopped. His name was Vijay. Vijay was 90 years old. Not that he told anyone, he didn't see the point. His life was measured not in years, but in losses. His wife had passed away 20 years ago, holding his hand and whispering a prayer he never got to finish. His only son had left for a job abroad and never returned, and over time, everything else followed. The house, the savings, the familiar places that once made life feel warm. So Vijay survived. Every morning, he walked 3 miles to the parking lot. He pushed carts, not for a salary, but for tips. Small, coins sometimes. A folded note on a lucky day. But mostly, nothing. And yet he returned. Not just because he needed the money, though he did, but because he needed to move, to work, to matter. The parking lot had become his world, his stage, his battlefield, and each day was a quiet war he chose to fight without complaint. One cold morning, everything began to change, though Vijay did not know it yet. A black car pulled into the lot, not flashy, but clean. Out stepped a man in jeans, a faded hoodie, and glasses too modern for his face. He walked with an ease that made him invisible to most people. Yet he watched everything. He noticed the old man almost immediately, not because of pity, but because there was something about Vijay's movements that pulled at him. The man's name was Sundar. Sundar Pichai. He was in town for a private event, something low-key, something away from the noise of his usual life. He wanted quiet, time to think. But fate had other ideas. He stood by the curb sipping a coffee from a paper cup and watched Vijay struggle to push 4 carts up a slight incline. The wind pushed back, harder than expected. Vijay didn't let go. Something stirred inside Sundar. He crossed the lot without thinking, stepped in beside the old man, and placed his hands on the metal bars. "May I help you?" Vijay looked up, confused. It had been years since anyone asked him that. Decades, maybe. He gave a small nod. Sundar smiled and helped him guide the carts toward the return bay. For a few moments, they worked in silence. "What's your name?" Sundar asked softly. The old man hesitated. No one had asked that in so long. He almost forgot how to say it. "Vijay," he said finally, his voice dry like paper. Sundar nodded. "You've been doing this long?" Vijay shrugged. "Long enough." There was something in his tone, firm, resigned, but not bitter. Just tired. They walked back to the center of the lot. Sundar helped him collect a few more carts. Then he handed him something before leaving, a folded note. Vijay didn't look at it until the man disappeared behind the tinted windows of the black car. It was a 500 rupee note. Vijay blinked twice, unsure. It was more than he usually, made in 3 days. He looked up, but the car was gone. Something had shifted, not just in Vijay's day, but in his world. Over the next few days, Sundar returned. Always early, always in quiet clothes. He didn't say much at first, just helped push carts. Sometimes he asked about Vijay's life. Other times he just walked, beside him, letting the silence fill the spaces between their steps. And slowly, piece by piece, Vijay began to open up. He told Sundar about the small tea shop he once owned, about the days when his son was little and used to help him serve customers, about the night his wife fell ill and never got better, about the letters that stopped coming from abroad, and the house that slipped away in the years that followed. Sundar listened. Really listened. Not like a stranger offering polite sympathy, but like a man gathering every word with the care of someone who knew pain. And one morning, Vijay said something that stayed with Sundar. Every cart I push, it helps me remember I'm still alive. Sundar didn't respond right away. He just looked at Vijay. Really looked at him. And then, for the first time, he asked a question he had been holding back. What if you didn't have to push carts anymore? Vijay gave a small smile. I've heard that before. From people who meant well but didn't stay long. Sundar didn't answer. But the next day, he didn't come alone. He brought a small camera crew. Nothing flashy. Just two people, quiet and kind. He didn't tell Vijay what it was for, only that he wanted to share the story of a man who inspired him. Vijay resisted at first. He wasn't used to attention. But Sundar's voice was steady, honest, and gentle. People need to know what strength looks like. And it looks like you. They filmed for an hour. No lights, no scripts, just Vijay, speaking from his bench by the wall, telling his truth. By that night, the video had been posted. What happened next was more than anyone could have imagined. The views started slowly, a few hundred, then a few thousand. And by the third day, it had reached over 1 million. But it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the comments. Strangers from all over the world began writing to Vijay, thanking him, crying for him, sharing their own pain. And then a message came through that changed everything, a message from someone Vijay had not heard from in 22 years. Papa, is that really you? The voice from across the world. The phone rang at 3:14 in the morning. Vijay didn't hear it at first. He had no smartphone, just a small black phone with missing buttons and a cracked screen that still lit up in the dark. It vibrated on the floor beside the thin mattress he slept on, inside the single-room shelter that once served as a storage shed behind an abandoned building. He stirred slowly, rubbing the sleep from his tired eyes, his bones aching more than usual. When he picked up the phone and held it close, his hands trembled, not because of the cold, but because of the name glowing on the screen. Rahul. The name hit him like lightning. For a moment, the air disappeared from the room. He blinked. His breathing grew shallow. He thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe someone else with the same name, maybe a prank. But then the message flashed again. Papa, is that really you? He sat frozen in the dark, the words burning into his eyes. It had been 22 years since he last saw his son. Not since the day Rahul boarded the flight to the United States, chasing a dream job with trembling excitement and a one-way ticket. Vijay remembered standing at the gate holding his wife's hand, his heart filled with pride and sadness. The letters had come for a while. Long, handwritten letters with stories of busy streets, cold winters, and endless work hours. Then emails replaced letters. And then silence. Vijay didn't know what had happened. He didn't know if Rahul had forgotten or if life had swallowed him up. Now, here it was. One message, 22 years later. He didn't reply right away. His fingers hovered over the keys, his throat was dry. He felt small again, like a father who wasn't sure if he still had the right to call himself one. But then, slowly, he typed 3 words. Yes, it's me. Moments passed. Then the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message. Vijay held the phone to his ear. The voice was older, deeper, but still familiar. Still his boy. Papa, I saw the video. I didn't know any of it. I thought you were doing fine. I'm so sorry. Tears welled in Vijay's eyes, the kind that burned from deep places. He didn't cry often anymore. He had learned long ago that crying didn't feed you, didn't warm your hands, but now he let it happen. In the dark, alone, He let 22 years of silence break. He replied with a shaky voice message. I thought you forgot me. We stopped hearing from you. We waited, Beta. We waited so long. Rahul's reply came instantly. Papa, I'm coming home. Please wait for me. The days that followed moved slowly, like the pause before a long-awaited breath. Sundar came by again, carrying tea and breakfast in his hands. Vijay didn't say much at first. He was still processing it all, still trying to believe that it was real. But Sundar noticed the difference. There was something in Vijay's steps that hadn't been there before. A spark. A slight lift of the shoulders. Finally, Vijay shared the truth. My son messaged me. After 22 years. Sundar's eyes widened, then softened. He reached across the table and gently placed a hand on Vijay's. That's incredible, he said. What are you feeling? Vijay laughed quietly. It was a sound that hadn't touched his throat in a long time. I don't know. Happy. Afraid. Old. Like I might wake up and find it was all a dream. It's not a dream, Sundar said gently. He's coming. And you're ready. Vijay nodded slowly. Then he looked out toward the parking lot, where the carts sat in quiet rows. I want him to see me working when he arrives, Vijay said. Not waiting, not broken. Sundar understood. A week passed. Then another. The video continued to spread. More messages came in. A woman from Canada offered to send blankets. A young boy from Mumbai sent his pocket money. Someone even offered Vijay a place to stay. But he refused them all, kindly. This is where I am, he said. Until he returns. Then, one rainy morning, the black car returned. But this time, Sundar wasn't alone. A tall man stepped out from the passenger seat. He looked older than Vijay remembered. More tired, more serious. But the eyes hadn't changed. Rahul. He walked slowly across the lot, the rain soaking through his jacket. Vijay was pushing a row of carts, but when he saw him, he stopped. They stared at each other. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The air around them was thick with time. Then Rahul dropped his bag, crossed the space between them in 3 long steps, and fell to his knees. Papa, he whispered. I'm sorry. Vijay reached out and touched his son's face like he was trying to remember it. You came back, he said, his voice cracking. After all this time, they held each other there in the rain, beside the carts. People watched. Some took photos. Others simply stood in silence. Sundar turned away, giving them the moment. Later that day, inside a small restaurant nearby, father and son sat across from each other with hot tea steaming between them. Rahul explained everything. After moving to the US, life had become complicated. The job was hard. The hours longer than he imagined. He fell into debt, lost touch. He had sent emails, but when they bounced back, he assumed they had moved on. Shame kept him away. Then one night, a friend had sent him a video. He clicked it, out of boredom, and there on screen was his father, still alive, still working, still waiting. I don't know how I can make up for the years, Rahul said, but I want to try. Vijay didn't ask for anything. He didn't talk about the lost birthdays or the days he had gone hungry. He didn't speak of the nights he lit a candle, just in case his son was praying in the same moment. He simply reached across the table and said, Then stay. That's enough. Rahul promised he would. But as fate would have it, something darker still lingered in the background, something no one had yet spoken of. That night, while Rahul slept in the shelter with his father for the first time in over 2 decades, Sundar received a message that chilled him. One of his team members had uncovered a deeper part of Vijay's story, something not even Vijay had shared. A debt, an old loan taken in desperation, and now, a shadow of a man had returned to collect it, and this time, he wasn't asking. The debt collector. When Vijay opened his eyes that morning, something felt different in the air. There was no clear sign, no obvious warning, just a quiet, weight that pressed against his chest the moment he sat up on the edge of the mattress. Beside him, Rahul still slept soundly, his chest rising and falling like it did when he was a child after a long day of school and play. Vijay sat there for a while watching his son breathe, silently thanking the universe for bringing him back. He didn't want to move. He didn't want to disturb this moment, this fragile stillness, but the world, as it often does, had other plans. Outside, the wind had picked up. The trees swayed like they were whispering secrets to one another. And just beyond the broken fence that guarded the edge of the shelter, a man stood leaning against a motorbike. He was tall, wearing a leather jacket with deep creases, as if it had lived 1,000 rough days. His face was weathered, not by time but by bitterness. He wasn't old like Vijay. He was younger, stronger. But there was something in his eyes, sharp, cold, that made him feel far more dangerous. Vijay stepped outside slowly, careful not to wake Rahul. The man didn't move. He simply looked at Vijay with a half smile like someone who knew he had already won. "You remember me, old man?" Vijay's breath caught. Yes, he remembered. The man's name was Yusuf. Years ago, almost 10 now, Vijay had borrowed a small amount of money from a private lender. His wife had already passed. The house was gone. And one winter, he had fallen, sick with no money for medicine or food. In desperation, he took the loan. It was supposed to be a short-term fix. 5,000 rupees, small on paper, huge in reality, but he couldn't repay it. The interest grew. The letters stopped, and Vijay assumed it had all gone quiet for good. Until now. "You've become a bit of a celebrity," Yusuf said, gesturing to his phone. "Your face is everywhere. Millions of people watching, crying, donating." He tilted his head. "So, I figured, maybe now's a good time to collect what you owe." Vijay didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply nodded. "How much?" Yusuf chuckled. "With interest?" 35,000. Vijay's legs went weak. He gripped the doorframe, behind him to keep from falling. He had never even held that much money at once, not in years. "I don't have it," he said. "Not yet," Yusuf said. "But you will. All these people helping you now? That video? Sundar Pichai himself standing next to you? Trust me, the money will come. And when it does, you better pay me first." Before Vijay could reply, Rahul stepped out of the doorway. His eyes were heavy from sleep, but his voice was clear. "Who are you?" "Just an old friend of your father's," Yusuf said, flashing a fake smile, reminding him of a promise. Rahul looked at his father. "What's he talking about?" Vijay hesitated. He had wanted to protect Rahul from this part of his life, from the darkness, the mistakes, but now it was too late. "I took a loan. Long ago, when things were bad." "How much?" "Too much," Vijay said quietly. Rahul stepped forward. "We'll pay you. But you wait. You don't come here again. Not like this." Yusuf grinned. "Sure, son, I'll wait, but not forever." He swung his leg over the motorbike and started the engine. 7 days, then I come back. And just like that, he was gone. Rahul stood there in silence, watching the dust rise behind the departing bike. He felt a tightness in his chest, anger, helplessness, guilt. He had come home to heal, to repair, to give back. Now he found himself facing another burden, another weight his father had been carrying in silence. Inside, Vijay sat at the edge of the mattress again, his shoulders slumped. "I didn't want you to know," he said. "It was a mistake, one of many. But I had no choice. I was hungry, sick, alone." Rahul sat beside him. "We'll fix it. I don't know how yet, but we will." Vijay looked at his son, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't want your help to feel like a punishment. I don't want your return to be poisoned by my past, Papa," Rahul said. "Your past is not what brought me back. Your heart did. And I'm not leaving again. Not now." Meanwhile, Sundar sat at his desk, reviewing the new footage his team had gathered. He had seen the interaction with Yusuf from a hidden camera near the shelter. He hadn't planned to involve himself again so directly. He wanted Vijay's story to unfold naturally without interference. But now this was different. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was a threat, a reminder of the cruel world that too often punishes the kind and lets the cruel walk free. Sundar picked up his phone and called his team. "We're not done," he said. "We're going to help him. But not by handing over money to someone like that. We're going to help him rise in a way that debt collectors can't touch." "What do you have in mind?" his producer asked. "Something bigger," Sundar replied. "We're going to tell the next chapter. And we're going to give the world a chance to lift him, not just with sympathy, but with opportunity." "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. "And this time no one gets left behind." Over the next 2 days, Sundar and his team worked nonstop. They created a new video, one that told the whole truth. It wasn't just about an old man who pushed carts. It was about survival, debt, shame, and second chances. It was raw. It was real. And it wasn't just about Vijay anymore. It was about everyone who had ever been forgotten. They uploaded the video on a Wednesday evening. Within hours, it exploded. Millions watched. Millions shared. And then came the flood. Messages, donations, stories from others who had faced loan sharks and felt the cold edge of poverty pressing against their necks. But then something strange happened. The donations stopped appearing in Vijay's account. The page showed activity, but the balance remained frozen. A hacker. Someone had gotten into the system and rerouted the funds, and all signs pointed to one name. Yusuf. The stolen hope. The sun had barely risen when Sundar received the call. His head was heavy from the long night, his eyes still fixed on the glowing screen of his laptop, replaying the same line of code over and over. The voice on the other end was urgent, trembling not from fear but disbelief. "Sir," his assistant said, almost whispering. "The donation platform. The funds are gone." Sundar sat up straight, the tiredness vanishing in an instant. "What? Do you mean gone?" "The donations, they were transferred out. We traced the activity. It was someone using an identity that doesn't exist. No full name, no verified account, just a string of numbers, and a location ping from an old cyber cafe on the edge of the city." Sundar's heart sank. He closed the laptop and stood moving to the window of his hotel room. Down below, the city buzzed quietly, unaware of the storm that had just been unleashed. "How much?" he asked. "Everything, sir. Close to 4 million rupees. Gone." For a long moment, Sundar said nothing. He just stared at the horizon, jaw clenched, his mind racing. He thought of Vijay, of the moment the old man's face lit up when he saw the video go viral. He remembered the trembling in his hands when he whispered, "I don't understand why people care." And now this. "Do we have a name?" Sundar asked. A pause. Yes. One of the IP logs was messy. It slipped. The name used to register the email account was Yusuf Malik. There it was. Sundar closed his eyes. It wasn't just about money now. It was about dignity, about betrayal, and about the kind of evil that hides in plain sight, preying on those who are too gentle to fight back. Meanwhile, at the edge of the city, in the tiny shelter that smelled of rain and old wood, Vijay sat, at the same corner where he had once fixed his broken cane. Across from him, Rahul paced the room, his voice tense with disbelief. "He stole it, Papa. He stole your future. Your hope. Every rupee people gave to help you, he took it." Vijay didn't speak. He didn't know how. His hands rested on his knees, still and quiet. The silence in the room felt heavier than any storm. "How could he?" Rahul muttered. "How could anyone do this?" Vijay looked up slowly. "Because people like him. They've forgotten what it means to feel." Rahul clenched his fists. "We can go to the police." Vijay shook his head. "They won't find him. Not fast enough. And even if they do, the money is gone. Money disappears faster than it comes." Rahul looked at his father, his heart aching. "We can't just do nothing." Vijay gave a tired smile. "We're not doing nothing. We're surviving. Again, just like before." But even as Vijay tried to find strength in his words, something inside him had cracked, not just because of the stolen money, but because the kindness of the world, the one thing that had made him believe again, had been tainted. Back in the hotel room, Sundar sat in front of a whiteboard covered with notes, phone numbers, and scribbled timelines. His team worked in silence around him, tapping on keyboards, making calls, connecting dots. Finally, a soft voice broke the stillness. "Sir, there's something else." A young analyst stepped forward, holding out a tablet. "We found his address. Not a real one, but a garage. A place he used as a hideout. It's been abandoned for years, but last week he was there. Security footage confirms it." Sundar took the tablet and watched the grainy footage. There he was, Yusuf, carrying a small duffel bag, looking over his shoulder as he entered the garage. "Can we track him now?" "No, but there's one more thing." She pulled up another file. "The bag he was carrying. It's the same one that appeared in the background of your second video. Behind VJ, on the bench." Yusuf must have been watching him for days. He knew what was coming. Sundar felt the anger rise, slow and steady like a tide. He set him up from the beginning. The room fell silent. "We're not going to let this end here," Sundar said. "We're going to find him. We're going to get the money back, and we're going to make sure VJ never has to push another cart again." Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from VJ. "Don't worry about the money. Worry about the others like me. The quiet ones. The invisible ones." Sundar stared at the message, his throat tightening. He typed back slowly. "You are not invisible. Not anymore." And so, a new plan began to take shape. This wasn't going to be about revenge. It was going to be about justice. Not just for VJ, but for every person who had ever been tricked into silence. While Sundar's team worked behind the scenes, Rahul made his own move. He returned to his tech job in Bangalore, temporarily. He needed income, stability. He wasn't going to let his father down again. Each night after work, he video called VJ and they spoke for hours about life, the past, and the things left unsaid. On one of those calls, VJ said something that stayed with him. "The first thing poverty steals from you is the right to dream." Rahul sat in silence, the words echoing inside him. "But maybe," VJ added, "that's something we can get back." Just as the world began to rally again, sharing the new video, sending messages, offering help, Sundar received a call from someone unexpected, a woman's voice, calm and direct. "I know where Yusuf is." Sundar sat up. "Who is this?" "Doesn't matter, I used to work with him. We all thought he was just scamming small people, but now he's poked the wrong lion." "Tell me where he is." "Not so fast, you'll need help. He's got people, and he's planning to disappear again." "Then we need to move fast." The woman paused. "You're not just doing this for the old man, are you?" Sundar thought for a moment. "I'm doing this because one good man believed he didn't matter anymore, and someone made him believe it again, just to steal it away." "Then listen closely," she said. "I'll tell you what to do next. But once you hear it, there's no turning back." And just like that, the chase began. Not for money, not for glory, but for something far more powerful, the right to believe again. The chase, the city never really sleeps. Even in its quietest hours, it hums, a constant undercurrent of engines, footsteps, and whispers. It was just past midnight when Sundar stood outside an old warehouse on the edge of town, the moon casting long shadows across the broken concrete. It wasn't where he expected to be. Not in a place like this. Not for a reason like this. But sometimes life asks you to show up, not as the person you're known to be, but as the person someone else desperately needs. Next to him stood Priya, the woman who had called him days earlier. She wore a plain hoodie, her hair tied back, her face expressionless, but her eyes were alert. They didn't miss a thing. "He's inside," she said quietly. "Not alone. He's got two others with him. One's a lookout, the other, probably holding the bags." "How do you know all this?" Sundar asked, though he already suspected the answer. She glanced at him. "Because I used to run with them. I was the one who taught Yusuf how to route money through shell accounts. I got out when I realized he didn't have a line he wouldn't cross." "And now you want to stop him?" Now I want to sleep at night, she said. A soft rustle nearby made them turn. Two members of Sundar's security team moved into position, quietly flanking the side of the building. No sirens, no drama, just calm, precise action. We go in quiet, Priya whispered. No threats, no shouting. We get the drives. That's where the money is. Sundar nodded. Meanwhile, across the city, Vijay lay on his mattress, sleep far from his eyes. The night was too long, the air too thick. Even though Rahul called every evening now, even though people still sent messages of hope and kindness, a part of him felt like it was slipping again. He remembered what it felt like to push those carts through the morning fog. The cold against his skin, the ache in his joints, the silence. It wasn't the work that had hurt. It was the invisibility. Now, all eyes were on him. But with the money gone, he wondered how long people would stay. Sympathy was warm, but fleeting. People moved on. The internet forgot, but Sundar hadn't. Back at the warehouse, Priya led Sundar through a side entrance, their steps muffled against the dusty floor. The place smelled like rust and gasoline. Shadows stretched across the walls like they were alive. They moved slowly, quietly. Sundar's heart pounded, not from fear, but from something deeper. Determination. Around a corner, they spotted him. Yusuf sat at a folding table, counting stacks of cash, headphones in his ears, nodding to music only he could hear. Beside him sat a small laptop, a tangled mess of wires, and 3 portable hard drives. Sundar took a deep breath. Priya motioned to stay back, then stepped forward. Yusuf, she said calmly. He jumped, knocking the table and sending a few notes fluttering to the ground. When he saw her, his face twisted, not in surprise, but in disgust. You? I told you I was done, she said. But you crossed the line. You stole from a man who never had anything left to lose. And now you're going to give it back. He laughed, a cruel, dry sound. I'm not giving back anything. The world gave him too much already. What did he do to deserve it? Push carts? Sundar stepped forward then, slowly, without anger in his voice, but with something heavier. He reminded the world what it means to survive. He reminded people to care, and he did it without asking for anything. Yusuf stared at him, confusion flickering across his face. Who even are you? Someone who listens, Sundar said. Yusuf stood slowly, his eyes narrowing. You think this money belongs to him? It belongs to whoever's smart enough to keep it, and you're not walking out of here with any of it. At that moment, Sundar's team entered through the back, quiet and focused. 2 security members moved quickly, disarming the lookout and securing the exits. Priya stepped to the laptop and began copying files, her fingers flying across the keys. You're done, Yusuf, she said. This isn't just about money anymore. The authorities already know. The only way you walk out of this without a cell door slamming behind you is if you give back every rupee and sign the confession. You think people will care about an old man and some sympathy money? They already do, Sundar said softly. The standoff ended not with a bang, but with a surrender. Maybe it was the numbers. Maybe it was the realization that the walls were closing in. Maybe it was the weight of guilt that finally cracked the hardened shell. Whatever it was, Yusuf sank back into the chair and gave up. The drives were recovered, the funds traced, the donations rerouted. Every rupee returned to its rightful path. The next morning, Vijay woke to a knock at the door. Outside stood Rahul, holding a small bag and a phone in his hand. Someone wants to talk to you, he said, smiling through tears. Vijay held the phone to his ear. It's done, Sundar's voice said gently. You're free. Vijay said nothing for a long moment and then quietly, thank you. Don't thank me, Sundar replied. Thank yourself for holding on, for never giving up. Even when the world forgot you, you didn't forget yourself. For the first time in years, Vijay felt something lift off his chest. Not just relief, but renewal. The news spread quickly. The recovery. The justice. The final chapter in the scam that almost broke a good man. And people didn't just cheer. They acted. A new wave of support flooded in, not just for VJ but for people like him. An initiative was launched in VJ's name, backed by Sundar himself, a program to support elderly workers in poverty. Shelter, food, healthcare, and above all, dignity. VJ stood in front of a small gathering days later, holding a microphone for the first time in his life. "I am not special," he said. "I am just old and tired, but now I am also seen, and that is more than enough." The applause that followed wasn't just for a man. It was for every forgotten soul who dared to survive. But even as joy returned, a letter arrived in VJ's hands. No return address. No name. Just a message. "I'm not finished, and neither are you," and tucked inside the envelope, a photo of VJ's wife, a photo VJ had buried 20 years ago. The forgotten truth, the photograph was old, faded at the corners, its edges curled with time. VJ stared at it for what felt like hours, afraid to blink, afraid it might vanish if he looked away even for a second. In the picture, his wife sat on a wooden bench beneath the peepal tree near their old home. She wore her favorite white sari with the blue border. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes looking slightly away from the camera, as if she were already seeing something beyond. Something he never could. He hadn't seen that photo in over 2 decades. He remembered the day he buried it. It was wrapped in cloth, placed inside a rusted tin box and lowered into the earth beneath the tree after the fire consumed her. That night, when he returned home alone, carrying only her bangles in the silence, he had decided to let go of all reminders. Not out of forgetfulness, but because it hurt too much to remember. And now here it was, sent to him by someone unknown, tucked inside an envelope without a name. But there was one more thing inside. A torn scrap of paper, 4 words, written in messy handwriting. "She didn't die alone." VJ's breath caught. He sat back slowly, his heart thumping like a slow drumbeat. The memories of that day rushed back, rushed like water breaking a dam. He had been at the clinic, buying medicine with the last of their savings. She had stayed home wrapped in blankets, her breathing shallow. When he returned, the neighbor told him she was gone. They said it was peaceful. No one was there. But this note, it said otherwise. He reached for his cane, the one Sundar had helped him replace with a new one, but he still preferred the old, cracked stick. It had walked with him through too much to be abandoned now. Rahul was out meeting the head of the new relief program. VJ didn't wait. He walked out into the sun alone, his steps slow, the photo trembling in his hand. His first stop was the old neighborhood. The tree still stood, its branches reaching up into the sky like arms begging the clouds for mercy. The bench was gone. The house had crumbled years ago, but a few familiar faces remained, older now, thinner, just like him. He asked about the letter. About that day, most shook their heads unsure. Some avoided his eyes, but one man, sitting near a chai stall, raised a hand. "I remember," he said. VJ stepped closer. "You were the one who came running from the clinic, right?" the man said. "I was there when she passed." "You saw her?" "No," he said. "But someone did. Someone came before you did. Sat with her, held her hand." "Who?" The man scratched his head. "Small fellow. Maybe 20 years younger than us. Quiet type. Used to do odd jobs, never said much. Lived in a room above the tailor shop." VJ's heart started to race. "What was his name?" "I don't know what name he gave people. But I heard him once, talking to your wife. When you weren't home, she called him son." VJ froze. "He said he worked for your son's old company, before your son left for the US. Something about a project they were doing together. I remember thinking strange. He looked too simple to be part of such work. But your wife, she trusted him." Vijay felt something shift inside his chest, like a piece of the puzzle snapping into place years too late. He whispered the name under his breath. Anil. He remembered now. His son had mentioned him once, a young technician with a quiet mind and a big heart. The kind of person people overlooked. Vijay left the stall and walked to the tailor's shop, which was now a tea stall. The man running it didn't know Anil, but an old record book still sat near the back. Vijay opened the pages slowly, his fingers trembling, and there it was, an address dated 21 years ago. He followed the address, walked blocks, then took a bus, then walked again. The streets narrowed, the buildings grew older, and finally, he found it. A small, crumbling house with a rusted gate. He knocked. Once. Twice. An old man answered, eyes pale with age but alert. He looked at Vijay for a long moment, then stepped back without a word, motioning for him to enter. You came, Anil said. They sat across from each other. Two men who had carried different kinds of silence for too long. Why? Vijay asked softly. Why did you send the photo? Anil looked down. Because it was time, and because your son asked me to watch over your wife while he was gone. She didn't want to be alone, and I made a promise. But why not tell me? I tried, Anil said. But when she passed and you came back, you were so broken. I didn't want to add to your pain, and then life moved on, and I lost the courage. Tears rolled down Vijay's cheeks. She didn't die alone, he whispered. No, Anil said. She held my hand, and she said your name until the end. For a long time, neither of them spoke, and when Vijay finally stood to leave, he placed his hand gently on Anil's shoulder. Thank you. For being there when I couldn't. Later that evening, Sundar met Vijay near the peepal tree, where the city had decided to build a small memorial in Vijay's name. It wasn't grand, just a stone bench and a plaque with his name. Vijay showed him the photo. It came back to me, just like everything else I thought I lost. Sundar nodded slowly. Sometimes, when we keep walking, the things we thought were gone find their way back. Vijay smiled, not because of luck, because people care. The wind blew softly through the leaves. A group of children nearby chased a ball across the road. A young man with a tray of chai passed by, offering free cups to the workers building the last part of the shelter behind them. And for the first time in a very long time, Vijay didn't feel like a man at the end of something. He felt like a man who had been reborn, not with riches, not with titles, but with something deeper. Peace. The kind you only earn by surviving storms and still choosing to be kind. He sat on the bench beside Sundar, placed the photograph beside him, and looked up at the sky. She waited for me, he said, and Sundar answered softly, and you waited for yourself.